There's still a microcosm of negativity surrounding linear video games. Tightly designed corridors, set paths, concise storylines. In fairness, these elements can reduce player agency, which isn't desirable for everyone. However, if you're after an experience that's more thoughtfully crafted and you're not bothered about replaying games for their stories only, then linear games are the way to go. What the games on this rundown demonstrate is that in designing games linearly, developers make room for other components. Innovative gameplay mechanics, extensive development across all characters, more attentively curated world design, that sort of thing. There's a degree of debate surrounding linear games and their truest definition. For this feature, we're thinking along the lines of games that have a set beginning, middle, and end, with progress shared somewhat identically between every playthrough. Open worlds, backtracking, games centered on exploration, these do not tend to fit. There is wiggle room in this rule set though, as you'll find out in this feature. The Last of Us Part 2. We speculated on our 2023 linear games list that in terms of gameplay experience, The Last of Us Part 2 is probably better than Part 1, so it'd be remiss to exclude Naughty Dog's masterful sequel to their much beloved and much hated apocalyptic adventure series. Ellie's a little older, although still hot-headed, plus there's more characters, denser locations, and a gut-wrenching, if controversial story, which will stir emotions whether you agree with the narrative decisions Naughty Dog made. Uncharted Drake's Fortune. More Naughty Dog on this list already. Uncharted Drake's Fortune might not reach the heights of Uncharted 2's thrilling set pieces, but its legacy as an artifact of perfectly paced, pristinely crafted, cinematic storytelling stands tall. Drake's Fortune raised the benchmark for linear video games with its influence spread far and wide. Dead Space, rebooted Tomb Raider, modern Resident Evil remakes. Games such as these can trace their lineage back to Nathan Drake's first swashbuckling escapade. Dead Space 2023.
Go!
And on the topic of Uncharted's inspiration, sci-fi survival horror Dead Space leapt out of the darkness in 2008 when Resident Evil's stock was floundering. However, despite Resident Evil leaving the door open, Dead Space sales were disappointing. Thankfully, in the years since its status grew and a remake was greenlit. That remake dropped in 2023, and it arguably surpasses its forebearer in every department. A more expansive story, helped massively by a once silent, now fully voiced Isaac Clarke. Broader combat mechanics, better handling weaponry, more realized zero-G mechanics, modernized graphics, polish, and refinement. If horror and linear overlapped Venn diagram style, Dead Space 2023 would be at the center. Max Payne 3. You asked for it, now you got it. Max Payne 3 was the most questionable exclusion in 2023's list if YouTube comments are anything to go by, and fair enough, there's good reason why Max Payne 3 deserves a spot. For starters, insane production value coalesces with the series' most intense shooting brilliantly, and a Hollywood tale of redemption presents beautifully through smartly constructed stage design. The only complaint out there is the prevalence of many cutscenes and their insistence on taking control away from the player. These cutscenes tighten the storytelling, but still, there's unwanted frustration there. Little Nightmares 2. Unsettling imagery creates noxious, macabre atmosphere, or still is when said imagery is grounded in semblances of reality, apart from maybe those floating hospital beds. This is where Little Nightmares 2 succeeds. Sure, mechanically speaking, this sequel surpasses its predecessor, but Little Nightmares 2 is simply better in conveying the horror in its imagery, especially during the harrowing evasion of exceptionally creepy enemies, the Hunter and the Teacher. Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. perhaps snubbed by those who haven't played due to lackluster marketing and weak forerunner Marvel's Avengers, but if you're overlooking Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, you're missing out. Guardians' enjoyable chapters have a very clear setup, fulfilling the linear requirement for this rundown, but it's back at base camp where the game shines. This place is buzzing. The dynamism between characters is in full flow. The game's script writers evidently put humongous effort into ensuring Guardians' trademark humor is felt by players whether they're engaging with the characters or not. Manhunt. Vehement attempts to brand Manhunt as a murder simulator fell on deaf ears for, yes, whilst you're controlling a death row inmate forced to participate in a series of films, the game's blend of action, stealth, and violence made it a surprisingly compelling and, importantly, enduring experience. There aren't many options in terms of how you dispatch your targets, but the brutality in its executions is rather satisfying, with calls for more sequels ongoing. Tomb Raider 2013. Sure, there are smidges of open-world sensibility in Tomb Raider's broader environments, but these merely serve to provide distraction from the game's objectives via hidden crypts and collectibles. Whether linearity fits Lara Croft's urge for unfettered exploration is debatable, but inarguably, Tomb Raider 2013 is a worthy alternative to Uncharted, a series it heavily leans on for inspiration. Great characters and a concise story convey Tomb Raider's gritty reimagining perfectly. Senua's Saga: Hellblade II. Much has been made of Senua's Saga: Hellblade II deploying Unreal Engine 5's suite of game-making features to aplomb. Realistic facial animations and incredible motion capture aside, Ninja Theory creating one of the most visually impressive-looking games to date is only half of the story. Hellblade 2 is a hyper-focused, narratively impeccable experience. Detractors say this game is too linear or that it lacks replayability, but linearity is far and away the best method of telling the emotional journey Senua forges through both internally and physically in battle. Resident Evil 2. Whilst there is only one true path through Resident Evil 2 and thus considered linear, it's true that the secrets nestled within Raccoon City's police department can be unraveled at your own pace, unlocking rooms and revealing hidden locales in numerous orders. That's testament to Resident Evil 2's game design, if anything. There's a maze-like element to these levels which serves up mystery and dread in equal measure. Of course, some of the backtracking you'll undertake as Leon and Claire is forced by Mr. X's threatening advances as well. Metal Gear Solid 4: Guns of the Patriots. Whether you're infiltrating isolated South America or creeping through dimly lit Eastern European alleys, there's always a sense that, despite their openness and complexity, there's a path laid out for you. This most certainly isn't a detraction. Metal Gear Solid 4's locations succeed in the fact that they feel like active war zones, and this living, breathing conflict masks their linearity fantastically. Guns of the Patriots' narrative is convoluted, makes no sense, but the design of its locations plus stellar voice acting add necessary grounding to the experience. Detroit Become Human. Okay, so Detroit Become Human's branching narrative and multiple endings might belie the truest definition of linear video games. It's correct, you'll progress through levels designed tightly unlike open worlds, but you've numerous options on how to get to the game's ending. Maybe in that sense, just for Detroit Become Human, a new descriptor is required, a term which defines its branching story, yet on-rails gameplay. Multi-linear maybe, or choose-your-own-adventure game, perhaps? Firewatch. Back to truly linear, set path, no deviation games. But wait, walking sim Firewatch, despite the resolution of Henry and Delilah's relationship always ending with them never meeting in-game, does have subtle differences available via multiple playthroughs. Most noteworthy is Delilah agreeing to meet Henry after they've been evacuated, an ending it seems most playthroughs don't attain, but there are distinct tones and phrases defining the pair's relationship, possible depending on the player's dialogue choices. Perhaps another new term is needed. Slightly linear? Narratively delinear? Splinter Cell: Chaos Theory.
Good work, Sam. That shut down the magnetic locks on the windows. Hey, wait a minute. Power spike. The lobby. It looks like a laser grid just came online.
Lasers. Lasers are so...
90s?
I was gonna say 70s. Can you please stop making me feel old?
Got bad news for you, Sam. You are old.
Ask anyone who's played Splinter Cell what their favorite game in the series is, and Chaos Theory is likely at the top of the pile. Beautifully presented, refined controls, fantastic level design, a gritty yet funny Sam Fisher, Chaos Theory was the culmination of all that was good about every Splinter Cell up to that point. However, its levels do present a couple of options that could betray its linearity, a signposted path, and a hidden path for instance, but we're nowhere near taking Hitman's level of sandboxing. Chaos Theory is great linear storytelling. Simple as that. Vanquish. You might be unaware that Vanquish was originally conceived to be more open, with wide-ranging battlegrounds with multiple enemy positions the player was required to eliminate. During development, gameplay was adjusted to be more linear of an affair, and this proved to be a masterstroke as it made room for the developers to concentrate on the game's numerous innovative elements. The bullet hell style franticness of combat, the slide boosting, the beat-em-up melee fisticuffs. Playing Vanquish is a blast that excelled in its linearity. And that'll be about it for this one. If you guys like what we're doing at GamingBolt, please consider subscribing to our channel, and I'll see you guys on the next video.